back to the second hour now of the World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Now, last week we had, I think, a very comprehensive review of the Greek situation over recent years. This time we want to talk to Michael Chiotinin in Athens. We've just had the International Monetary Fund spring meetings here in Washington, D.C. Greek Finance Minister Varoufakis was here. There were various things going on. So let's get the view from Athens on all of that. Michael, welcome.
Hello. And this is another week with the euro in crisis. I think you should call it the Euro Crisis Radio. There are rumors being circulated once again that the European Commission, some big European countries, blah, 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 are all preparing and making their plans to deal with a Grexit. Now, the press is referring to strange new words all the time, if you've noticed. They're talking about a Grexit, a right. Grexident, or Grexident, several of these types of words. Now, what we should make of this, I think, clearly, is that these rumors are deliberately vague, and these strange words are an attempt to cover up the fact that there is no chance whatsoever that Germany, for instance, unfortunately represented by this finance minister Schäuble, will try and push Greece to leave the euro. So they're talking about some kind of default or event, but not clearly talking about an exit from the eurozone, because they're beginning to understand that Greece is willing to go to a default, and of course secretly no one wants a Grexit anyway, except some speculators.
And again, the default is mainly at the expense of Deutsche Bank, the institution that controls the German government through this talking puppet Merkel.
Yes. Now, let me note here, once again, because this is a big deal in the international media, that this is emphatically not a matter of Greece versus Germany. It's a matter of German and Greek parasites, oligarchies, against working people, both Greek and German. By the way, there are strong elements inside Greece. There's a corrupt oligarchy that is now ready to offer, once again, earth and water to Greece's lenders in order to save itself. Hold on to power, get rid of this threat that is this new government for them. Now, many say that the Europeans or the Germans are ready to kick the Greeks out of the Eurozone. First of all, that is insane as an idea, a country kicking out another country. I don't know where they get the nerve to say these kind of things. And second of all, how can we seriously believe and suggest that a minimum wage hike or a small bonus to Greek pensioners, poor Greek pensioners, can be the reason for a complete change in the economic and strategic direction, which is the euro, having to do with the heart of German policy, foreign policy, and financial policy. That said, the ruling elites, on the one hand, can't afford losing the common currency, but on the other hand, they also can't tolerate any government differentiating from the policies they want to impose. Because what's the common currency good for, as they see it, as if not for using it as a tool for political domination? And right now, they simply don't want to change the things, the way things are being run, because things are going well for them. Now, what's Greece's financial situation having to do with what you said on the IMF, about the IMF? Bond maturities are coming up. In fact, have already come to pass, and the funds that were supposed to have been given to Greece to meet the payments haven't come. These are loan installments from the previous contract or loan or bailout deal, whatever you want to call it, that had to be paid by the lenders to Greece already in last October. But in order to get this money, Greece was supposed to have completed another round of austerity and all these things. Actually, they went to elections before taking these measures precisely to ensure as little electoral humiliation as possible, talking about the previous government.
For Samaras.
For Samaras. So the new government hasn't had new money coming in at all. And we're not talking here about money the government needs to function. We are talking about bonds that need to be repaid. In other words, once again, Greece can roll over its debts. Now, the fact that Greece hasn't defaulted yet is because the government is doing an exceptional job fixing the government revenue mechanism, and that they're actually paying back debts without rolling them over to new debts. I can't recall any country in the world that has ever done this. So they are taking money out of the economy to pay back the IMF. Are they doing this, or is this a game? And you might think that's crazy, right? I mean, isn't the whole idea of an anti-austerity populist government not to squeeze people to pay back its lenders? I think there's a political game being played here that is much more complex, and it's a risky analysis, but I have an analysis on this. The German finance minister Schäuble, I think, is interested in the humiliation of this government. When I say Schäuble, I mean I'm referring to the figurehead, okay, the frontman.
Right.
Now, Schäuble is interested in humiliating the Greek government that had the audacity to challenge the way things are being run. What is it Schäuble doesn't want? He doesn't want a precedent being set that European countries can govern themselves and elect whomever they want to elect. Well, what is that Schäuble also doesn't want? He doesn't want to overthrow Tsipras in a way that will make him a hero. Now, what does he actually want? It is to either make Tsipras bow to his will, surrender to austerity and humiliate him in the eyes of the Greek people, and then overthrow him, or to humiliate him in any other way he can, and then get rid of Syriza and all this. Now, a Greek default triggered by an inability to pay back European institutions would make it seem like the Europeans have declared war against the Greek government. Politically, it's very difficult. But up until June, the only money that Greece needs to pay back is to the IMF. And which is considered to be inside the U.S. sphere of influence, with the current U.S. administration somewhat more friendly towards Greece. What Greece is currently trying to do is, firstly, agree on a reform package without the austerity, and secondly, start a discussion on how Europe needs to confront its own structural problems. It would be a godsend for Schäuble if Greece was to default on the IMF. In other words, fail to pay back money to the IMF, because that would begin a process of panic, capital flight, humiliation, with the Europeans blackmailing Greece, as they did with Cyprus, if you remember. Mm-hmm. And indeed, that is what was probably being planned for a long time by Schäuble in cooperation with recently fallen government in Greece. All this gives me the feeling that the Greek default is part of the plan, but they're trying to make the IMF to make the IMF responsible for it. In other words, make the IMF look bad. The only question is whether the Greek government could find a way to continue paying back to the IMF in May and June. In other words, June is the turning point.
Okay, so Schäuble wants to blame it all on the IMF. We'll be following it. Thank you, Michael. We'll see you next week. Great work as always.